Working, working, 1, 2, 3. In the thick of labor's throes, got this job that's killing me. You do the work, but he gets the money. On the treadmill, on the spot, running hard, banana. Job is job that's misery. You do the work, but he gets the the money, honey.
So, one of the greatest hoaxes in this whole thing is the future.
We are considering the subject of time. Time is a social institution. The stars, waters, rhythm. Seriously. Motion. Degrees. Time. Constant. Motions and rhythms. Clock, ruler, abstraction, material, reality, deeper level, conscious attention, nor beautiful ones. Something of this kind. And that's what happened to us when we were born. We got into a gaming room. And it was only a game, but we began to take it all terribly seriously. 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 Seriously.
This male, female, black and white. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
blue, blue, blue rain in Texas, in Texas.
Very few people are aware of it. Blue. Failure of our technology. Destroying the planet. Something outside. But life happens. Looking at things in rows as the magnetic tape. The universe is smarter than we are. In the near future, pollution, overpopulation, nuclear fallout, poisoning of our food, that concept is a fraud. If somebody says to me, Alan Watts, do something about it, you can't wrap up parcels with the equator.
sing with me, let love be free. In this moment, just you and me. Melodies all like the sun's embrace. In the cool of the night, let's find our place. So sing with me, let love be free. In this moment, just you and me.
Better go, or you'll be late for your train. Right about now, your husband is raising Cain. It's not psychosis, it's just fear. But leave those roses here. Maria, Maria. When I said, why can't we just be together? She waved goodbye and walked across the heather. And then I took off my disguise. I wonder if she ever cries. I wonder if she ever knew her lover was her husband too. Maria, Maria, Maria. Maria, 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 Maria. Maria, 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 Maria. Will I only love you from afar, like love in a cloud, love in a star? Maria, Maria, Maria. Maria, Maria. I wonder if she ever knew her lover was her husband too. Maria, 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 Maria.
Pieces of the cake I'm seeing, my part in the great escape was running away with the cash. Crucial operations function, the weak link in the chain was me. Yes, I'm afraid it was me.
There are crows, crows, crows in the trees, saying crow things, doing as they please. It is not around here early because of all the crows. What they want and where they came from, no one really knows. Crows are scholars early, with reason I suppose. There are crows, crows, crows in the trees, saying crow things, doing as they please. There are crows, crows, crows everywhere, and when I think of you, dear, I don't care. It gets miles around here slowly, because of how it goes. Every day we hear the same long list of those crows' woes, thinking they're so holy while leaving mementos. There are crows, crows, crows in the trees, saying crow things, doing as they please. There are crows, crows, crows everywhere, and when I think of you, dear, I don't care. It's like around here slowly, because of how it grows. Every day we hear the same long list of those crows' woes, thinking they're so holy while living on mementos. There are crows, crows, crows in the trees, saying crow things, doing as they please. There are crows, crows, crows everywhere, but when I think of you, dear, I don't care. But when I think of you, dear, I don't
So we were isolated for like 28 days. They were concerned for the first 3 missions that maybe we would bring germs back and we could infect the whole earth, really. You can see all the controls and displays in the background. it was a lot of work, a lot of training, and day after day repetition. One of the thoughts I had at this part of the pre-flight, I had my brain full of things that were life and death. On here you can see the checklist that I got on my cuff, my watch, so we would practice it on Earth. It was hard because I was carrying around double my weight. So everything has to be checked out, has to be timed, has to be done just right. Having to learn to make things work right the first time and not some other time. My name is Alan Bean. I piloted the Apollo 12 lunar module. We had a dream, an impossible dream. We believed it. We then get our spacesuits on, then we come out this little hatch, go across the porch, and down the stairs. And we achieved it. I walked on the moon.
God, you're just beautiful. That is the most beautiful sight. You're sitting there.
It was an amazing adventure, and everything that happened, training, and since then has been more than I ever deserved, but I'm glad to receive it. We reached the moon with technology infinitely more basic than what's at your fingertips today. What will you be able to do now?
is the greenest of all plant forms. But what's the most delta of blues, you beg? Music, the highest of all art forms, only to be found on radio, 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 Greg.
It's time for Declare Your Independence with Ernest Hancock.
Believe me when I say we have a difficult time ahead of us. But if we are to be prepared for it, we must first shed our fearless. I stand here without fear because I remember that I am here not because of the path that lies before me, but because of the path that lies behind me. I remember that for 100 years we have fought these machines, and after a century
So if you really go the whole way, of all your efforts and all your achievements and all your attainments turning into dust, nothing. Most real. Basic reality is nothingness. Where does all this come from? Obviously from nothingness. See? So in this way, and you see it's your reality, and how can anything contaminate it? All worried and so on, because you're really nothing. So cheer up. Pure means clear, void. Grisly. All the sun and stars. All are contained in this void. So out of this void comes everything, and you are it. What else could you be?
constant yell. I used to dream of doing something all the time. It's on TV. Content 5. I used to dream of doing something. I used to dream of doing something. I used to dream of doing something.
I would surface again. And I would start to drown again. And I would surface again, come up again. And then I would go down into the water. And I had this sensation that I was going to drown. And it was frightening and suffocating.
My clothes were dragging me back.
There was more around this water and I didn't like it.
And I began to feel very frightened.
It to go down and down and down.
My clothes were dragging me back.
It was very dark and very deep.
The sea is very deep.
I seemed to be drowning.
I am going to drown.
And I thought, well, it's no use trying to think I'm not going to
In Iran, Israel's morbid military cult now has the US fully in its grip. In this catastrophic war of choice, it is Tehran fighting a rearguard action to restore geopolitical sanity. If Iran loses, God only knows where Israel and the US will drag the world next. By Jonathan Cook. The admission this week by US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, echoed by Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House of Representatives, that Israel forced Washington's hand in attacking Iran has rightly caused consternation. Breathing life into something that would normally be treated as an anti-Semitic trope, Rubio argued that the Trump administration had been left with no choice but to attack Iran because, had it not, Israel would have launched an attack anyway, exposing US soldiers to retaliation. Rubio stated, "The president made the very wise decision. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces, and we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer high casualties." Rubio was using the term preemptively in a highly irregular and misleading way. In international law, aggression is an illegal application of force, the supreme international crime, according to the 1950 principles set out by the Nuremberg War Crimes Tribunal. But there is a potential mitigating factor if the attacking state can show it was acting preemptively. That is, it was acting to prevent a plausible, immediate, and severe threat of attack. Rubio, however, was not suggesting that the US acted preemptively against a threat from Iran. He meant Washington had acted preemptively to stop its ally, Israel, from setting off a chain of military events that would lead to US soldiers being harmed. Had the Trump administration really been acting preemptively in these circumstances, the US should have attacked Israel, not Iran. But Rubio's comment begged a further question. Why didn't Washington simply tell Israel it was forbidden from starting a war against Iran without US approval? After all, Israel would be incapable of mounting any kind of attack on Iran without the critical support provided by the US. Israel has had to rely on help from US military bases dotted around the region, as well as the Arab states that host those bases. The attack would have been quite inconceivable without the backup of a massive armada of US warships sent to the region by Trump. Israel can withstand Iranian retaliation only because it gets a degree of protection from missile interception systems provided and funded by the US. And on top of all that, Israel is regional hegemon only because it gets massive subsidies from the US worth many billions of dollars a year to preserve it as one of the strongest militaries in the world. In other words, Israel would have found it impossible to wage war on Iran alone. It is a paper tiger without the US. Rubio's comment suggested one of two possibilities. Either that the US, with the strongest military in world history, is under the thumb of the tiny state of Israel, or that Trump has made his own military, the strongest ever, servile to Israel. Whichever it is hard to square with Trump's repeated assertion that he is putting America first. This point is so glaringly obvious, it is presumably the reason why Rubio was forced to walk back his comments the next day. Meanwhile, Trump hurriedly suggested it was he who had forced Israel's hand to attack Iran, not the other way around. The more likely truth is not that Israel forced Trump's hand. It is that he was seduced by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's false claim that an attack on Iran would be a cakewalk if they struck at a moment when they could be sure of killing Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. Such a decapitation strike, Trump was led to believe, would be a repeat of his Venezuela success when he kidnapped President Nicolas Maduro from Caracas to bring him to trial in New York. In Venezuela, the flagrant flouting of international law by the US was intended to be the equivalent of pointing a loaded shotgun at the head of Maduro's replacement, Delcy Rodriguez. Do as we say, or the new president gets it from both barrels. Netanyahu knew exactly how to sell Trump, still giddy on the noxious fumes of this law-breaking venture, the idea that he could repeat the exercise in Iran. The Ayatollah's successor would similarly be putty in his hands, which is why in this catastrophic war of choice by the US and Israel, it is Tehran fighting a rearguard action to restore a little geopolitical sanity. If Iran loses, or the US succeeds without paying a fearsome price, God only knows where Israel and Washington will drag the world next. The world's fate, in a real sense, is in Tehran's hands. What the joint attack on Iran demonstrates most clearly is how much Netanyahu has succeeded over the past quarter of a century in Israelizing Washington and the Pentagon. The US has always waged illegal wars of aggression. It has always been more gangster than global policeman. But just because Washington was run by ruthless criminals, it did not mean it was incapable of getting still more deranged, still more psychopathic. That is what Netanyahu has been working on, and Trump is now giving full rein to the Israelization of the US. The clues are everywhere. On Wednesday, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, the traditional title of the Secretary of Defense, presumably sounding too law-abiding, dropped any pretense of being the good guy. He insisted US forces were acting without mercy and that the Iranian regime are toast. The US would deliver death and destruction all day long. The previous day, he had set out the game plan. No stupid rules of engagement, no nation-building quagmire, no democracy-building exercise, no politically correct wars. This isn't the traditional rhetoric of US administrations seeking to flaunt the West's superior values or claiming to be on a civilizing mission to the rest of the world. This is the rhetoric of colonial arrogance, of the same military medievalism long espoused by Israeli leaders. Hegseth sounded all too much like General Moshe Dayan, Israel's defense minister in the 1960s. He famously set out Israel's overarching military doctrine. Israel must be like a mad dog, too dangerous to bother. Before its attack, the US had spent years trying to starve the people of Iran into an uprising, just as Israel blockaded and starved the people of Gaza for some 16 years on the assumption that they would be encouraged to overthrow Hamas. The strategy failed in both cases. Why? Because it ignored the simplest of facts, that the people being abused are human beings who will always choose freedom and dignity over degradation and subordination. Now led by the nose into a humiliating war of attrition with Iran, the US is lashing out like a mad dog, just as Israel did in Gaza after it was humiliated by Hamas's one-day breakout from the concentration camp Israel had created for Palestinians there. Hegseth's no rules of engagement means the US is now open about the fact that all of Iran has been turned into a free fire zone, just as Gaza was, which explains why one of the first targets of the US and Israeli strikes was a primary school, where more than 170 people were killed, most of them children under the age of 12. According to reports, even in the right-wing Telegraph newspaper, US and Israeli attacks have already created an apocalypse in Tehran. Essential civilian infrastructure is being targeted, such as hospitals, schools, and police stations. Residential areas are being carpet-bombed, and food and medical supplies are rapidly running out. Rubio has vowed that much worse is to come. The US has evidently been captured by the depraved logic of the Dahiya Doctrine, which Israel developed in its repeated attacks on Lebanon and further refined over 2.5 years in Gaza. The Dahiya Doctrine goes much further than simply the idea of asymmetric warfare inherent to attacks by a stronger party on a weaker party. Under the doctrine, civilian casualties are no longer unfortunate collateral damage from strikes against military assets. Rather, the civilian population are treated as no less legitimate targets of attack than military infrastructure. For Israel, the Dahiya Doctrine grew out of an acceptance that there were no meaningful war aims that Israel could achieve in its battles against the Palestinians it ruled over or against Hezbollah's resistance in Lebanon. Israel was unsatisfied simply with pacifying the Palestinians. It knew they could not be pacified indefinitely, given that it had no intention of ever arriving at a political settlement with them. The fabled two-state solution was purely for Western consumption. It never had any meaningful constituency of support in Israel. Rather, Israel's goal was to use overwhelming and indiscriminate violence to terrify the Palestinians into ethnically cleansing themselves from the region, as had partially occurred in 1948. Similarly, in Lebanon, where the Dahiya Doctrine was first developed, the goal was not to reach a political accommodation with Hezbollah through a show of force. Hezbollah had made clear it would never resign itself to watching the Palestinians erased from their homeland. The goal was to wreak so much pain on Lebanon that other religious sects would turn on Hezbollah and plunge the country into protracted civil war, leaving Israel free to get on with the expulsion and now genocide of the Palestinian people. Under the Dahiya Doctrine, Israel implicitly acknowledged that it was not fighting simply against militants, but against the wider society from which those militants were drawn. It had to accept that there could be no victory, no surrender, assessed in traditional military terms. So what it had to do instead was leave a smouldering ruin. Time and again, Israel has used massive firepower on civilian infrastructure and residential areas to break the will of a society, to drive it back into the Stone Age, to use the terminology of Israeli generals, so that the population would expend their energies on survival rather than resistance. This is what Hegseth and Rubio are now declaring as Washington's war aims in Iran, a willful, savage demonstration of mass destruction to no purpose other than demonstration itself. This is not a winning strategy, military or political. It is not even a failed strategy. It is the morbid pathology of a cult, which explains a flood of complaints over the initial days of Trump's war on Iran from US soldiers about their commanders. There have been at least 110 so far, according to reporting by Jonathan Larson here on Substack. In one to the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, the MRFF, a non-combat unit commander told non-commissioned officers that Trump was anointed by Jesus to light the signal fire in Iran to cause Armageddon and mark his return to Earth. The Department of War under Hegseth, an evangelical Christian who believes the West is on a crusade against Islam, appears to be riding roughshod over First Amendment rules against proselytizing within the armed forces. The theocratization of US armed forces is not new. George W. Bush spoke in terms of a crusade against terror nearly a quarter of a century ago, but the process appears to have reached a point now that the top ranks of the US chain of command are deeply imbued with an evangelical fervor for war in which Israel plays a central part. Mikey Weinstein, the president of MRFF and an Air Force veteran who served in Ronald Reagan's White House, told Larson his group had been inundated with soldiers reporting the euphoria of their commanders and command chains as to how this new biblically sanctioned war is clearly the undeniable sign of the expeditious approach of the fundamentalist Christian end times. In end times beliefs, based on the book of Revelations, a terrible battle between good and evil takes place at Armageddon, a site in present-day northern Israel, which leads to the Messiah's return to earth and a great rupture in which believing Christians rise up to be with God. Weinstein added, many of their commanders are especially delighted with how graphic this battle will be, zeroing in on how bloody all of this must become in order to fulfill and be in 100% accordance with fundamentalist Christian end-of-the-world eschatology. Central to these beliefs is the gathering of Jews as God's chosen people into the land of Israel, a much larger area than that covered by the modern state of Israel. For Christian fundamentalists such as Hegseth and a growing number of US commanders, Israel is the catalyst for the end times. For very obvious reasons, Israel has been nurturing its ties with the huge numbers of Christian fundamentalists in the US. They are politically active. Their vote secured the presidency for Trump, and they treat Israel as a critically important domestic issue rather than a foreign policy matter. They are eager for Israel to seize wide swathes of the Middle East and largely indifferent about what that entails for the Palestinians or the other peoples of the region. This all neatly dovetails with the ideology espoused by Netanyahu and the Israeli military command, which years ago was taken over by the same religious extremist zealots who lead the violent settler movement that systematically attacks Palestinians in the West Bank and steals their land. As the Israeli military launched its genocide in Gaza, Netanyahu urged soldiers on by telling them that they were fighting the nation of Amalek, the enemy of the ancient Israelites. In the Bible, God commanded King Saul to carry out the total annihilation of the Amalekites, putting to death every single man, woman, child, and infant, as well as all livestock. As can be seen in the erasure of Gaza, Israeli soldiers accepted their mission quite literally. After all, they were not just carrying out Netanyahu's orders, but an order from God. Netanyahu has not relied solely on the sacralization of indiscriminate warfare by his own and the US Army. He has also cultivated a wider, racist, anti-Muslim mood in the US and Europe to smooth Israel's path as it levels large parts of the Middle East. He has vigorously promoted the idea of a clash of civilizations, the idea that a Judeo-Christian West is engaged in a permanent joint war against the supposed barbarism of the Islamic world. The synergy between a US military enthralled to Christian fundamentalism and an Israeli military enthralled to a biblically inspired Jewish supremacism is all too clearly on show now in Iran. This combined military juggernaut has no interest in safeguarding human rights. It recognizes no distinction between civilian and military targets. It prioritizes its own soldiers' safety as enforcers of God's providence over the civilians those soldiers are attacking. And it believes, in crushing the life out of the people of Iran, it is advancing divine will. This is the true face of the war machine that upholds Western civilization. These are the real values the West is fighting for in Iran. The rest is a smokescreen.
Most modern wars are fought over political disagreements. Which are pretty shallow. Ideological battles. What kind of government are we going to have? Capitalism called communism, or communism called capitalism? Or what have you? Those wars are fought out of fear. So we say, all right, we're going to blow those bastards to pieces. We're afraid of them. We don't want anything to do with them. We'd like to just get rid of them. Yeah, but if that is your motivation and this is your spirit, that you're frightened of the enemy, you're not going to be a good soldier. A good soldier is supposed to be courageous. You're not supposed to be afraid. So, all right, say, well, okay, we're not frightened of these people. We just think that they've been exploiting everybody else, and we're the knight on a white horse with a lance, and we're going to rescue everybody. Okay, in you go. And you stir up the same kind of problems. Everybody says to the knight on the white horse, gee, aren't you a stuffed shirt? You think you're holier than everybody else. You offend us by your righteousness. You're disgusting. You're not even human. And after all, you're a hypocrite, because you may come on politically with this white horse, but you have all kinds of rackets back home, and you know. Still, you're courageous, you won all that courage, you're not afraid of death and all that. So, if you're not afraid of death and all that, the question comes up again, why fight? What's the point? Who are you protecting? Are you going to teach your children to be afraid? And say, I'll protect my children because they've been taught to be afraid. I'm the father. I've learned not to be afraid. Why didn't I teach my children not to be afraid? If I had, I wouldn't have had to defend them. Because they would have said, it's just an illusion, and we can dissolve out of this body and appear somewhere else. Because if that is what happens, and it's pretty obvious that it is, I mean, when I say you'll appear somewhere else. Everybody who appears is you. Only you can only experience it one at a time. But everybody only experiences themselves in the singular. But everybody's you, everybody's I, that's our name. We all share that. So there's nothing to worry about in that sense. But if you know that in your heart of hearts, I mean, obviously the only strategy that is worth anything at all is not to chop everything up. But to love everybody.
Join the We Love V2 Radio Club.
When certain obstructionists become too irritating, label them after suitable build-ups as fascist, Nazi, or anti-Semitic, and use the prestige of anti-fascist and tolerance organizations to discredit them. In the public mind, constantly associate those who oppose us with those names which already have a bad smell. The association will, after enough repetition, become fact in the public mind.
You ready? wine, but it's the end of the day.
Well, you know how I feel about the Gaza Strip. I think it's an incredible piece of important real estate. The level of debt on the Gaza Strip is just incredible. And I've said it. I don't understand why Israel ever gave it up. Israel owned it. It wasn't this man, so I can say it. He wouldn't have given it up. I know him very well. There's no way. They took oceanfront property and they gave it to people for peace. How did that work out? Not good. They gave it away for a good intention, and it didn't work out that way.
I think what the president talked about is, first of all, to give people a choice. Gaza was closed in. And every other place, including in arenas of battle, I mean, whether it's Ukraine or Syria or any other place, people could leave. Gaza was the only place where they locked them in. We didn't lock them in. They're locked in. And what is wrong with giving people a choice? Now, we've been talking, including over lunch, about some countries, I won't go into them right now, that are saying, you know, if Gazans want to leave, we want to take them in. And I think this is the right thing to do. If you give it, you know, it's going to take years to rebuild Gaza. In the meantime, people can have an option. The president has a vision. Countries are responding to that vision. We're working on it. I hope we'll have good news for you.
Any idea what he's talking about? Israel gave them Gaza.
They were surrounded by walls, barriers, armed guards, for God's sake.
Carl Jung shadow work, Carl Jung synchronicity explained, Carl Jung archetypes, Carl Jung psychology, Carl Jung books, Carl Jung shadow explained, Carl Jung introvert personality, Carl versus Freud, Carl Jung analytical psychology, Carl Jung anima animus, Carl Jung deep psychologist, spirituality, Carl Jung quotes, Carl Jung lecture series, Carl Jung documentary, Carl Jung mindset, Carl Jung personality theory, Carl Jung self-discovery, Carl Jung and individuation, Carl Jung and dreams, Carl Jung dream analysis, Carl Jung in modern life, interview rare, Carl Jung full lecture, Carl Jung shadow self, Carl Jung ego and self, Carl Jung the Red Book, Carl Jung myth and meaning, what is shadow? Carl Jung how to do shadow work, Carl Jung shadow work guide, Carl Jung Jordan Peterson, Carl Jung explained. Carl Jung archetypes.
I still have a dream.
train that took her daddy from her. It was the Bible train that took her mama too. And that high loud whistle made her horse run away. But the straw that broke the camel's back was you. It was the government train that took away her childhood. It was the KKK that took away her past. It was the white man's will that hers be broken, but that barefoot girl could run too fast. The wagon train that took away her country. It was the oil train that took away her land. And she could have been the belle of the Ponderosa, but that was not the fat man's plan. I want to love, love, love,
If I close my eyes, who do I see? I close my eyes, looking for me. I see you. Hell is only one dose of heaven away. Hell is only one dose of heaven away. Oh, at least that's my handle. Oh, what the gods
frequency clear. Keep this frequency clear. Keep this frequency clear. Keep this frequency clear.
The sun pours down like honey. See, I think it's quite possible that the 1960s represented the last burst of the human being before he was extinguished. And that this is the beginning of the rest of the future now, that from now on there'll simply be all these robots walking around, feeling nothing, thinking nothing, and there'll be nobody left almost to remind them that there once was a species called a human being, with feelings and thoughts, and that history and memory are right now being erased, and soon nobody will really remember that life existed on the planet. That the 1960s represented the last burst of the human being before he was extinguished. And that this is the beginning of the rest of the future now, that from now on there'll simply be all these robots walking around, feeling nothing, thinking nothing, and there'll be nobody left almost to remind them that there once was a species called a human being, with feelings and thoughts. All these robots walking around, feeling nothing, thinking nothing. Feeling nothing, thinking nothing.
Numbers like moments fade away. We're going out today and never stop. We're going out in straight lines back to this spot. We're counting unnumbered days. Numbers like moments fade away. Numbers like moments fade away. Numbers like moments fade away. We're going out today and never stop. We're going in with questions that can hold off this storming. Our teacups, the Holocaust. And that is that, and that is this. Let nothing come right, leave in between it. And that is that, and that is this. Let nothing come right, leave in between it. The mice seem
is authorized to play reggae music worldwide.